We're back with lesson 13 of quick and effective environment illustration. In this lesson, we're basically going to render out this tree. We've got a nice locked layer, great mask, and within that mask, I'm going to paint freely texture and color to bring this flat shape to the full form of a tree on the mountainside here. To do that, we're going to add shadows, indicating where a form is behind another, a branch is going back. We're going to add lights where the branch is coming forward, little dark spots, little light spots, basically going through systematically and breaking up all the flatness and all the Photoshopness of it, and breaking that up to give it a natural look. You know, anywhere where we can see the hard brush, the hard edge, and it looks like a hard round brush. We've got to break that up a little bit, add a little more interest, because this is basically the focal point, right around where this tree is overlapping these mountains, where the last light of the day is hitting. That's the part of the picture that I want to emphasize. That's the reason, you know, you trek up here to this mountainside by the tree to take this picture, is how beautiful the tree is overlapping this distant background when they're both getting caught with the same light from the sun. And of course, these clouds are still in their early stage. They're still in simply well, they've blocked in and refined, but I haven't colored them yet. You know, I once all this foreground is done, if you remember from earlier, we're going to go back and blur out that cloud layer and get to work on that. But to know how much detail I'm going to put in that cloud, you know, in the cloud rendering, I want to get this foreground up to its level first. I want to work up these detail areas, and then I'll know just when to stop rendering out the far distant areas and the supporting areas, the non-focal points. And here we can see an interesting fact about landscape painting, how I'm using a very small brush and I'm painting actual little marks. The smallest detail I can put down, I'm putting down with this brush, with these little lines. These are cracks between bark on a tree. And that mark that I'm making, that small, precise mark, you know, if you were to put that mark in the background, that mark is huge. That mark would represent something the size of an entire tree, if not larger, way back on that distant mountainside. And so that shows you why in landscape painting you need to use a separate technique to represent these elements at different distances. You know, there's no way you can treat a tree the same in the foreground as in the background. When in the background you have the same brush to work with, so you can only go so small and only go so detailed. So you need a different approach in landscape painting. You need to use texture brushes. You need to imply that stuff in the background. And in the foreground, see, we've waited until now to break out the small brush and start lining in details and drawing in bark and drawing in, you know, the smallest of the smallest marks we can make. Because I'm zoomed in here all the way, 100%, and this is as detailed as you can go. And see how I've saved this till way later in the end, when I can make these marks much more confidently, because I know the general shape is there, the outlines are there. Now taking a look at the whole, you can see how much more contrast there is in the foreground than in any background elements. You know, you squint down, background, one element, the whole mass, the whole shape is still very much one value. Here in the foreground, now when you squint, you can pick out light and shadow, little variation in the value and texture. And that's a matter of crisping it up, you know, going the full contrast range all the way down to black here in the foreground. You know, there's no black, there's nothing that dark anywhere back in the picture. And in just like painting the lights on those trees, it slowly build up the texture. You know, for the most part, I'm laying down color opaquely and building up texture. You can see how far it's come from the initial sketch. And so as I'm putting down this texture, I'm really laying down a color and a mark and reacting to it at this point, because this is the final stages. This is detail, adding in, you know, I'm trying only to make marks that are going to add to the image now. You know, of course, I don't want to start adding new changes or anything. So I'm going to continue on rendering out this foreground like this, coloring it in, texturing it up, and we're really going to clean up the foreground and render it out in the next lesson.